Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Energonomics. I'm your host, Richa Mishra. Today, we are talking about something we all feel, especially on a hot summer day, the desperate need to turn on our air conditioners. But what if turning on the air conditioner wasn't an option? A new report from the Climate Impact Lab shows that by 2050, extreme heat could cause over 4 lakh deaths a year. The heartbreaking reality is that while wealthy countries will just buy more air conditioners, the poorest nations are trapped without the power grids or money to cool down. It is a massive human crisis and it is heavily tied to the energy economy. Here to break down what this means for the future and how can we fix it is one of the researchers behind the study. Please welcome Ashwin Rode, Director Scientific Research, Energy Policy Institute at University of Chicago and Fellow at the Climate Impact Lab. Welcome, Ashwin. So, Ashwin, we'll straight away get to the point with you. Ashwin, we all know what is happening, but when you have it on a paper, it makes it feel real. So, my first question that comes to you immediately is that how much would the projected annual death toll increase over the next 25 years if the models factored in urban heat island effect caused by air conditioning alongside volatile economic shifts in developing countries?
Yes, those are two very important questions, distinct questions you've posed. So I'll start with the first one on the urban heat island effects generated by the heat from the AC exhausts, right? So this is a very kind of it's a feedback effect. So people are using ACs to cool themselves from the heat, but those ACs are themselves generating a localized warming. And our study does not explicitly account for this feedback, so we cannot quantify the additional effects. So the projections in our study should be viewed as a lower bound, and things could get much worse with these kind of feedbacks. There's a need to really study the science of that in different settings. So India has very dense urban areas. So these kind of feedbacks could be especially acute in denser urban areas. And it's something we should study both the science of as well as the human impacts of that feedback. And it's possible that those who are cooling with ACs that's creating this heat island, but it's also affecting people who are not having access to that AC. So we need to consider the human impacts as well as just the physical science of how that feedback works. And yeah, just in general, studying this phenomenon in dense urban areas is a great need right now. Yeah, so that's really another kind of feedback which our model does not explicitly account for. So essentially, there is now an emerging body of work that climate has impacts on economic output and economic growth. So as the climate warms, studies have shown that these hotter temperatures can reduce the level of economic output, and some studies have also shown that it can put countries on a lower growth trajectory over a longer horizon. So this is another kind of feedback. So yes, economic activity generates emissions from fossil fuel use that creates global warming, at the same time that warming feeds back on the economy and has been shown to have impacts on these kind of macroeconomic variables. So what that means for the human impacts is that uh, these economic shocks are also affecting people's ability to adapt if they're not able to realize the income gains that they otherwise would. So that's another kind of feedback which deserves further study. So both of these are two examples of feedback effects, which are kind of our understanding is emerging of these. And then the specific point about volatility, yes, climate may also be increasing the volatility year to year, and that will also have these macroeconomic repercussions.
It's clearly a worrisome situation. I mean, as I said earlier, also that having it on paper makes it even more real and very stark. So I come to a very important question, which most of us here in India want to understand is that what specific grid vulnerability did you identify in India that could trigger mass blackouts during peak cooling demand by 2050? Was there any outlook on that?
So yeah, this is a study of the energy impacts of in terms of increasing demand. It does not actually look at the engineering of the grid. However, there's a lot of work emerging now showing that climate affects energy systems, energy markets in many ways. So for instance, these are various points that relate to grid vulnerability under a warming climate. So water is needed to cool generators. So that's going to become more difficult under a warming climate. Then hydropower, certain places rely on hydropower, and the flow regime of rivers is going to be affected by climate change. Then higher temperatures also reduce transmission capacity, and they lower the efficiency of fossil fuel generators. So these are several ways in which a warming climate affects the supply side of energy. Our report focuses on the demand side, but these are all major supply side considerations that we need to plan for going forward. And then other aspects, storage technology is going to become all the more important. The need to deal with transmission bottlenecks. Essentially, we can view, so there are various known vulnerabilities just in general today, and climate acts as a multiplier. We can think of it as acting as a multiplier on these things. So it becomes all the more important to address various vulnerabilities.
In your study, you have pointed at 18 countries. You have gone and you have assessed. What I actually wanted to understand from you is how can middle income nations upgrade their electricity markets quickly enough to keep power both inexpensive and reliable? Like, for example, for a country like us, we're very price sensitive, cost sensitive nation. So it becomes all the more important how to make it inexpensive and reliable.
Yes, those are the two key words. We want both reliable and inexpensive. I mean, we don't want to burden the lowest income sections of society, right? Electricity access is really critical to unlocking economic growth. We haven't seen any country in history with strong economic growth, but without expanding electricity access. So that's really a non-negotiable thing for India and other countries to experience economic growth going forward. At the same time, uh, the lack of reliable electricity is hampering this growth. And there's some work by my colleagues that has basically investigated a kind of vicious cycle that's going on. So electricity is widely regarded as a fundamental right. This has been articulated by politicians and in other places. And there has been a delinking of electricity usage from payment. And this generates a cycle where there is, besides subsidies, there's extensive theft and non-payment. And then distribution companies lose money with each unit of electricity sold. And then they're losing money overall as well. And as a result, they ration supply to limit their losses, and they restrict access and hours of access. And supply is no longer governed by the market, and that further reduces customers' incentives to pay. This is a pattern seen in many countries around the world. And we want to, as you said, we want reliable electricity that's also affordable. So some of the reforms that have been suggested have been to reduce these subsidies that break the link between electricity usage and payment, yet also provide direct support to the poorest consumers. So we want to make sure that the subsidies go to the people that need them the most, that the support goes to people that are most vulnerable, that need that support the most, rather than just being delinked from a person's income. And this requires several things to make it operational, right? For instance, better metering. So there are a number of things that will just deliver very beneficial effects in terms of unlocking prosperity and economic growth. And at the same time, those same things are going to make us more resilient in a warming climate. So they're not separate things. We have to view them together holistically.
So basically, it's all a wake up call for all of us to prepare, to be future ready, as one would say.
Yes.
Thank you for being on Energonomics, and your work shows that cooling isn't luxury anymore. It's a matter of survival and a massive challenge for our global grids. So thank you, Ashwin, for sparing this time at the last moment and patching in with us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rita. Thank you for having me.
If you've learned something today, please subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode. Until next time, stay cool and keep learning. Thank you.